This painting depicts one of Napoleon's greatest triumphs, the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805. The artist, François Gérard, was commissioned with this work to commemorate the decisive French victory. Completed in 1810, it is not only a work with many fascinating details that tell little episodes of the engagement, but it is also an excellent example of Napoleonic propaganda. The subject chosen for this painting is the moment of the solemn victory over the Austrian and Russian armies at Austerlitz. The first thing the viewer notices when looking at the painting is the sharp contrast of colors. The red and gold on the uniforms and horse tack of the French military give a rich, almost regal appearance, while the Russian and Austrian combatants are depicted in more drab and dark colors. Weapons lie scattered on the ground as though still alive but obviously wounded, beg for help or mercy. The scene takes place on the Pratzen heights, an elevated position close to the city of Austerlitz that was strongly contested. We do not see the heat of the battle itself, but rather the moment when the news of the victory is brought to Napoleon. The emperor takes all the attention on the right of the painting. He appears calm and confident and is wearing his iconic Bicorne hat. Contrary to common belief, Napoleon did nothing innovative or revolutionary with wearing the bicorn sideways. It was in fact the fashion until 1800, and it was also worn by regular infantry. While some have even argued that Napoleon wore his hat sideways to be instantly recognizable, we can already see in this picture that also his generals equally wear the hat sideways. But there's another feature of his clothing that sets him apart. Amidst the elaborate and ornate uniforms around him, Napoleon stood out by wearing the simple green uniform of a colonel of the Chasseur à cheval, a type of French light cavalry. It was one of his favorite uniforms, and he preferred to wear it during campaigns. One must note that Napoleon is raised above the rest of the assembly, like someone of Olympian heritage. He and his horse are as one, stony and without any kind of expression, thus intended to be portrayed as a quasi-divine being beyond human emotion. His white statuesque steed is called Cyrus, which after the battle will be renamed Austerlitz. The only other figure equally on a white horse to step out of the crowd is General Rapp, who takes all the attention on the opposite side of the painting. He is Napoleon's aide-de-camp and brigadier general. At Austerlitz, he led a memorable attack when he charged at the head of 2 squadrons and decimated the cavalry of the Russian Imperial Guard. He is just coming out of the fight, wounded, covered in the blood of his own and the blood of his enemies. General Rapp has his right arm outstretched, presenting the standards captured from the Russians, recognizable by the green color and the double-headed eagle. Next to Rapp, we find the captured Russian general Repnin-Volkonsky, looking away in pride. Unlike Rapp, he has no wounds and a clean white uniform, as if he would not have fought bravely. He stayed in French captivity until he was freed after the Peace of Tilsit in 1807, 2 years after the battle. The man who escorts Repnin is Colonel of the Hussars and Charles Lebrun. Historically, he has been given the honor by Napoleon to ride to Paris and spread the news of the victory at Austerlitz. The standards are carried by the Mameluks, who fought with Napoleon's French army. They participated in several campaigns throughout the era. The Mamluk on the bottom is a man named Mustafa, known for his courage and his ferocity. He is carrying an enemy flag and seems to have just lost the bridle of his dying horse. This is a remembrance of a famous scene of the battle in which Mustafa set out in pursuit of the Grand Duke Constantine of Russia, who only got rid of him by firing a pistol shot at his horse. The horse was badly wounded, and Mustafa came to Napoleon and apologized that he could only offer him one single standard and not many more. Not far from Napoleon, we find another Mameluk, the famous bodyguard Roustam Raza, who followed the emperor on every campaign like a shadow for 15 years. The other prominent figures around Napoleon seem relatively calm and orderly. Their eyes are focused on General Rapp. Next to the emperor is the right-hand man and talented organizer as chief of staff, Louis-Alexandre Berthier. Behind Napoleon, we find the Grand Marshal of the Palace, Christophe Michel Duroc, who was responsible for organizing Napoleon's security. Napoleon would weep over his death in 1813 when a cannonball ricocheted off a tree trunk and hit Duroc in the stomach, tearing open his belly. After begging Napoleon to end his suffering, he replied, "I feel pity for you, my friend, but there is no remedy but to suffer till the end." Next to Duroc, we see Jean-Baptiste Bessières, commander of the Guard Cavalry and one of Napoleon's closest friends, and one of the few men he trusted completely. The only person not focused on Napoleon or Rapp appears to be Jean Junot, dressed in the impressive uniform of a Colonel General of the Hussars. He performed well at Austerlitz, but by the finalization of the painting in 1810, Junot had repeatedly incurred the emperor's displeasure during the campaign on the Iberian Peninsula, narrowly escaping a court-martial. Napoleon never granted him the title of a French marshal. Whether that's the reason why he is portrayed as if his attention is not fully there remains speculation. There are several details that tell small stories around the battle. On the very right we see the Old Guard marching in, the most trusted soldiers of Napoleon. He always held them in reserve, and sometimes was even too hesitant to throw them into the battle. The front man of the Old Guard looks away in disappointment. They were reportedly enraged at being left out of the fighting at Austerlitz. They were the only soldiers who were allowed to speak and complain openly to Napoleon and were therefore famously called the Grumblers. Another famous scene is represented by the Russian officer on what is left of his artillery. He complains of being dishonored for having lost his battery, to which Napoleon allegedly retorts, "Calm yourself, young man, and know that there's never any shame in being defeated by a Frenchman." In the background we spot a hunter, who seems to suffer while holding an enemy flag. This brave man, without complaining, had the courage to come to the emperor and fell dead in front of him while presenting the standard that he just captured. Napoleon, wishing to honor the memory of this hunter, instructed the painter to include him in the composition. The overall dark theme of the painting only breaks in the upper left corner. The brightness opposes the dark cloudiness of the sky in the top right and center. This depicts the famous Austerlitz fog, which was reportedly present during the battle and passed down over time. Napoleon is said to have ordered the attack shortly after seeing the astounding blood-red sunrise shining through the mist, and the Scarlet Sun of Austerlitz became a myth from that day on. The sun is casting a white bright glow on the standards, thus giving an almost supernatural aura. The symbolism is clear. The heavens opened and shone a light upon Napoleon's arrival. With this painting, François Gérard was eager to prove his strength in the prestigious genre of history painting, after he was mainly famous for portraiture. Publicist François Gérard would later judge what wisdom in the general order and what skill in the combination of groups, while others would criticize the painting as confusing and complicated. Nonetheless, it is an astonishing achievement to compose a battle scene with so much detail and accuracy. The painting offers a sense of drama and heroism. In retrospect, it recorded Bonaparte's great skill as a general and showcased the power that France achieved due to its emperor's genius. Today, this panoramic oil painting of a scene at Austerlitz can be admired alongside many other masterpieces in the Gallery of Great Battles at the Palace of Versailles.